Welcome to the Comeback Athlete Podcast. I'm Blake and I'm your host, and I am excited to talk to you today about the macronutrient fats. And there are so many misconceptions about this one, so I'm glad to dive in and make it as simple as possible. That's always my goal in these podcasts, is to make it so my clients and my coaches' clients and any guests are listening, to make it as simple as possible and not try to nerd out on you too much, but make it so that the client can get this. So last week we went over carbohydrates. This week we'll go over fats. Next time we'll go over protein. So stay tuned for that one. That should also be really, really good. I also want to make a quick announcement before we dive in that we are launching our promotion of getting half off working with one of our coaches. So if you do a referral for us that signs up, you can get half off, and the client who you referred gets half off for the first month. So if you're interested and you want to join us, or you're a current client and you have some friends, some family you'd like to refer to us, if you refer them, they put your name down as a referral and they sign up, you get half off next month with your coach, as well as the person who signed up. So let's keep this rolling. We hope that you guys reach out, DM us, or head over to comebackathlete.com and you can fill out our application on there for a new client. And as long as they let us know that you referred them, we will take care of that on the next payment. So without further ado, let's jump into, do fats make you fat? Spoiler alert, they do not. All right, fats are a great micronutrient. We're going to talk about what they do for our body. And then we're going to dive into 4 different types of clients and how they should view fats and what fats they should prioritize. So we're going to talk about weight loss clients, performance clients, the ones that want to go for it as athletes, right? The hormonal dysfunction client, we are going to add that one in. So someone who's having low testosterone or having progesterone or too much estrogen, or like a female who doesn't get a regular cycle, right? And then a vitality client, the person who wants to live long, have great labs, live long, prosper, but they're not really trying to get after it for competition, and they're not trying to lose weight. They just want to feel good and be vital. So those 4, we're going to talk about how we apply the macronutrient fats after we explain what fats are, and then try to discombobulate some of the misconceptions that we find in our current social media world about fats. So the only thing that makes you gain weight is eating too many calories and not burning enough calories. So the law of thermodynamics always stands on that pillar. It gets more complicated though as we get into this, because we start recognizing that how many calories our body burns is a hard thing to actually figure out. We have BMRs that we can take through things like in-body scans and DEXA scans and things of that nature. However, understanding what someone is actually eating through food journaling is the only way we really get to have a true understanding of if what they're eating is a true maintenance or not. And the only way you can do this is take down a full week of calories that you're eating, get as close as you can. I know that the studies and research show that we can be off from anywhere between 30 and 60% for most of us that are tracking food. The reality is, though, that people who are not tracking food are that much further off. So it's still the best thing we have for our Gen Pop people who are trying to train and get healthy. So do this for a week. Write down all of your food, either on Chronometer or MyFitnessPal, and get on the scale on Saturday morning, first thing, and weigh in from the previous Saturday. And if you've lost weight, you're at a caloric deficit. If you're the same, you're at a caloric maintenance. And if you're higher, you're at a caloric surplus. Now, where it gets more robust for your goal is what type of calories are we eating? And that's where the macronutrients get really important. And so do micronutrients. But for today's sake, we're going to focus on fats. So when you think about fats, you typically think of ketogenic diets, right? You think of low carb, high fat. You're thinking of people who only eat protein and fats, and that's going to help you get lean. Well, I tried to blow that out of the water. That's why I started with carbohydrates last week. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that one, and you'll understand how important carbs are. Carbs are the fast source of energy that we want to use for our body. What we think about with fats is the opposite. I like to do this when I work with clients when I'm starting out and doing basic nutrition. I say fats are our slow energy, carbs are our fast energy, and protein is our building blocks of repairing. Now, it always gets a lot more complicated than that, but I think that's a good, fifth grade understanding of how to start with someone and understand the basics of what we're diving into. All right. So you got your fats, you got carbs, and you got your proteins are typically a big three. Sometimes people throw fiber in there as a fourth, but it's good to know what your fiber is. But it's not typically one of the big three that we think of when we think of fats, or I'm sorry, macronutrients. So fats are like slow burning logs on a campfire. I wrote that one down, right? And carbs are like twigs or like paper that you would throw on a fire, right? They light fast but burn out quick. Fats like keep you going for hours. So when they talk about like, you're in a fat burning stage, it's like doing long, steady cardio is going to help burn fat. Because you're going to be in that oxidative state where your heart rate's at like a zone 2, zone 3 for a long period of time. That is a good fat burning state. That means that you're using fats as energy. We can do this for a long period of time. We'll run out of carbs because carbs are kind of get out of emergencies quick, right? They want to be fast. That's where we use strength. That's why if you want to get really strong, really powerful, really fast for sport, you have to have carbohydrates. But why are fats important then for the majority of us? Well, we'll get into that. And that's why I kind of broke it down into those 4 different categories of weight loss, performance, vitality, and hormonal, because they all kind of have different functions on how they'll be helpful. But fats are the most complicated, I would say, out of the proteins, out of the 3 macronutrients. And the reason for that is that there are different types of fats. So I'm going to try to make this as simple. You don't need to geek out and know all this stuff. But typically, and I don't like using the word good and bad, but I would say better and worse. Better fats for most people's health journeys and performance journeys are going to be monosaturated fats. So these are like fats like avocados, extra virgin olive oil, nuts, things like that. Saturated fats, which would be like mostly what you cook with, and also like fat in animals. So like coconut oil, grass-fed butter, egg yolk, fat on a steak. That would be saturated fats. This is usually really, really good for hormonal health. This is why like a lot of like carnivore people that are in the carnivore diet, talk about testosterone and eating your saturated fats. And there is a lot of research that shows that is true for hormonal health. And then you have like your omega-3 fats, which would be like salmon, flaxseed, chia seeds, walnuts, things like that. Those will be your better fats. Those will help with inflammation. They're going to help with hormonal health. We'll dive into that a little bit. Fats you want to avoid that are, unless you're having a really good time and you want to enjoy some, are going to be like trans fats. So trans fats or polysaturated fats, those will be the other ones. Trans fats are going to be the ones that you find when you go down the baked goods aisle, right? So you walk into Publix or whatever grocery store you're at, and you go right, and there's the baked goods aisle, and they have all the good carbohydrate sugars mixed with trans fats, and they're really, really tasty, highly palatable, but not a whole lot of great micronutrients or vitamins or minerals that your body absorbs or needs, and very, very, very high calorie. So that's where they become an issue. Where polysaturated fats, which are very similar, kind of like think of, seed oils, right? And I need to dive into that now that I've said that evil word. But when you talk about seed oils, you now have this idea of high omega-6. So if you think omega-3 is a fatty acid that helps with inflammation, it lowers inflammation. It's in fish, it's in excuse me, it's in salmon, it's in um, sardines, it's in all kinds of things like that. Omega 6 is in a lot of highly processed seed oils, and that's highly inflammatory in high doses. So, like chicken has omega 6 in it. So, like this can happen to people who just eat too much chicken. They can get, and you have to eat a lot of chicken for this, but it does happen like with certain like bodybuilders and stuff who eat like, I don't know, like a pound of chicken a day or something. You can get some higher omega 6 inflammatory issues. When this happens, inflammation, chronic inflammation, causes a lot of diseases. And so research is showing that seed oils have a lot of omega 6 in it and they can cause this. And that's really where a lot of this comes from. So, in moderation, are seed oils bad for you? No, but it's what is moderation? And the other problem is that seed oils typically are highly palatable foods, and they're in things that taste really, really good. So think of like a lot of our cereals, a lot of protein bars, a lot of things like that have seed oils in it. They're going to have soybean, corn, canola oil, things like that. And uh, that is going to cause some digestive issues, chronic inflammation over time, and then that can cause some metabolic issues down the road. So this is where we want to avoid these things. So if you're listening and you have hormonal health issues, or you're not getting a consistent period, you're not having your testosterone's really low, you probably want to avoid seed oils and start upping your saturated fats. But let's talk about fat for weight loss and body recomp. So for this person, your goal is really to change the aesthetic, right, from being less fat, more muscle. And fat can actually be your friend. And why is that? So I would say you should probably, for this person, be around 25% to 30. Uh, for females, I don't really like to go below 20 because hormonal health needs to be that much more important typically. And then a lot of females, not all, a lot undereat because they've been very mindful of dieting from a very young age. And because of that, the there's a quite a bit of a seasoning of under eating, which means that your body gets less nutrients than it needs, and so hormonal issues can take place. So to be aware and be preventative of this, I try to keep fat at least above 20%, even for performance clients that are female. Males, I really don't think you should get below 20 either, but for special occasions, you can kind of go in that for short periods of time for maybe a performance goal where you need a ton of carbohydrates. But to be honest, fat is in a lot of our foods. So if you're eating enough calories, you're typically going to get enough fat in your diet for someone who is trying to be optimally healthy. But for a weight loss client, back on target here, I would try to keep you to 25 to 30% of your daily calories around fat. And the reason for this is that it keeps your hormones balanced. It also helps with staying full, right? Because fats are slower to digest, they're harder to break down because they're usually, especially when we stick to like polysaturated and saturated, monosaturated and saturated, we typically have more rich, nutrient dense foods that our body wants to pull and absorb all those minerals from. So it takes more time to break those down. Hence, you feel more full. That's why, at the same time, just to kind of like help you understand, that's why they're not great for pre-workout or post-workout, because when your gut is already under so much stress during the workout and right after the workout, your body has a hard time breaking down getting all the blood flow back to the gut to break down that food. So it's better to have it like if you're working out in the afternoon, your breakfast has fat in it and protein, right? And your dinner has fat and protein and some carbs, but not right after the workout. So that would be best bet. So it's going to help you stay full. It's going to give you hormonal function that's going to allow you to recover, and it's going to allow you to get the minerals and nutrients you need so that you don't want to continue to have hunger signals to overeat. Because you're actually trying to eat less calories, but get more meaningful calories. So that's where it can be very, very helpful. For the performance person, this is where usually people are like, I don't need fats. I just stick to carbs and protein. Because a performance person really definitely wants to perform well, so carbs, and then they want to recover well, which they think high protein. But you need to think of fats as a part of your recovery just as much. And the reason is that monosaturated fats like olive oil and avocado can help lower LDL, right? So high cholesterol. They can help you, and what that's going to do is allow your hormone function to actually tick up, right? Uh, you're going to have higher hormonal function and responses. The same thing's going to be true because you're going to have a lot of omega-3s in your diet. So if you're getting a lot of omega-3s like salmons and walnut, you're going to, sardines, things like that, or even like just an omega-3 supplement, it's going to allow you to actually recover faster and have that inflammation from all the training come down. So you want to have those fats in your diet. Just to get it in. Also, you also need so many calories, and because fats are higher in calorie, it's easier to get enough calories in your diet, right? When you're eating fats versus like if you only eat carbs and protein, you can get very full very quick and still not be getting enough calories in. So I always have like clients, especially older clients that have been chronically dieting over and over, and they're like, I can't eat enough food. I can't eat enough food. And to me, it's like so simple. It's like, dude, just go get some butter or olive oil and put it on some of the food that you're cooking with, and you've already upped your calories to 300 calories if you added enough. It's not that hard, but that's just something that people don't think about because they have such a negative association with fats, right? So not only is it really helpful for lowering inflammation, it's not only is it more calories, but it helps with brain fuel, right? There's been a lot of studies that show how, I was reading the book Spark, just being on a high fat diet really helps with brain cognition. And your body just wanting to use that because your hormones are functioning at a higher level when you're getting enough good fats in your diet. Your brain and cognition is sharper. Okay. Which ultimately helps with performance because the nervous system from the brain to the body needs to be functioning sharply. So, all right, let's talk about the big one. All right, hormonal recovery. So we see a lot of former athletes come back, right? They're like moms who maybe play D1 or D3 or D2, some sport. They have 3 kids and they haven't been training for all, and now they've been under eating and trying really, really hard to lose all the baby weight. But in the meantime, they're not sleeping, they're under eating, and now they have hormonal functions. They want to come back. They want to get back to box jumps and power cleans and snatches and running and getting after it. And what happens is they just are battling against some of their hormonal issues, whether it be progesterone issues, whether it be estrogen, too much estrogen, whether it be even in females, low testosterone, guys, low testosterone. Same thing. You could paint a guy, right, in this recovery. Like he, former basketball player or swimmer, and now he's got 3 kids. He works. He's got to get up at 5 a.m. He doesn't want to miss out on all the fun. So he stays up till midnight watching the shows and having some time with the wife. And then he's just got low libido. He's feeling really fatigued. He feels always beat up and injured. So this person's just super low T. So what that means is that like they need to be getting an adequate amount of protein or not protein, carbs, okay, to stunt and block cortisol, which we talked about last week, at night and post workout to optimize recovery. And then they need to be getting a lot of saturated fats in their diet and monosaturated fats in their diet so that they can assist with hormonal health, right? If you're a guy, you want to focus more on saturated fats for testosterone. If you're a female, monosaturated fats, right, for a lot of your hormones. So that is where we want to start. I always try to say around 30 to 40% for this type of client, depending on where they're at, and gets a little more nuanced per individual. So that's why I give a range. And then I'm also probably going to keep carbs around 30, 40. This is the only client because until your hormones get fixed and you're eating an adequate amount of food, like the aesthetic and weight loss thing can wait, right? You cannot start from a broken, like you can't rev the engine up to go fast if the wheels are loose and the engine's not working properly, right? It's just dangerous. So what we want to do is fix those things first before we go race. And if racing is the weight loss or the performance goal, like that's where we need to get after. So what I always say is up carbs, up fats, lower protein. Now protein's still 20 to 25%. So you should still be getting adequate, but it's not going to be probably bodybuilder aesthetic. It's definitely not going to be bodybuilder aesthetic. I was being kind there, but you're going to improve your sleep. You're going to improve your energy. You're going to improve your overall performance because you're going to be feeling better. And so sometimes even on this macro split, you can still see an aesthetic change because recovery is better, inflammation's down, you're moving more, you're naturally having a higher NEAT, right? And because of that, you're probably going to do more in your body. But I literally have a client who right now currently who's just eating a lot more calories. He was in a diet for way too long. And when he came to me and he couldn't lose the last 15 pounds, well, was his hormones off? Not entirely. He had some really good supplementation he was doing there. So some of that was a Band-Aid, but his body needed more calories and needed some time to relax. And he's actually lost weight eating like 700 more calories a day. And so while I upped a lot of his carbs, his fat naturally went up too. And because of that, like he is actually aesthetically looking better, eating more fats and carbs. So is he focusing on his protein too? Yes, he's getting an adequate amount of that in also. But you can do on a hormone diet split a 30% protein, 35% carbs and 35% fats and feel really, really good, at that ratio. Sometimes you need to lower it depending on where someone's at in the context, but that's usually not a bad place to start for someone that's going through this. So best fats for this type of person, think of, and I'll give the list, but like monosaturated and saturated. So grass-fed butter, coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, egg yolks, fatty fish, right? Any fatty fish. So not like necessarily like tilapia, which is like a white lean fish, even though it's really high protein, low calorie. You want to think of a fattier fish like salmon. And then high quality meats. So steaks, ribeyes, things like that. So that'll be another really good one. So fat for vitality and longevity. This is our last one, and then we'll kind of get ready to conclude here. So let's talk about like the person who's vitality and longevity. It's like a person who doesn't care about PRs. They don't care about high rocks, CrossFit. They just want to live long and prosper. They're never going to be the front cover magazine guy at like Men's Health magazine, but they want to live long. They're going to have good labs, and they're going to hypothetically feel great and be fairly fit, right? I would stick to this person around 30% of their diet at fat. And the reason for that is it supports your heart, supports your brain, like we talked about, your hormone health, recovery, and it gives you an optimal amount of variety of micronutrients, which is the key for a vitality client. You want to expose the vitality client to as much food-based vitamins and minerals as possible. So usually this is a variety, like if we're looking at whole plate, this is a lot of colors in the vegetables and fruits. This is a lot of colors in the fats category too, a variety of fats. Okay. And typically you're staying away from, again, seed oils and a lot of trans fats. So how do we apply all this? All right. Don't be afraid of fat, right? It's not the thing that makes you fat. It's not the villain. It's actually very helpful. The only thing that makes you fat is eating too many calories. Simple as that. Eat real whole food fats. So ditch processed and junk foods. All right. Adjust fat intake based on your goal. So to recap, the weight loss client is 25 to 30% of the calories are from fat. Performance will be kind of the lowest, right? Because we need a lot more room for carbs. So 20 to 30%, but we still want to optimize good saturated and monosaturated fats for recovery because there's going to be inflammation with performance clients. So this is going to help, especially omega-3s. Hormone and recovery, we want to think that client needs 30 to 40%. That need the most fats is going to be the hormone recovery person because it's going, especially saturated fats for men, monosaturated and saturated fats for women. All right. And then vitality clients, we just want to keep them at a 30%, very similar to the weight loss client, but getting a good variety of fats in their diet so they can be exposed to as many minerals and vitamins as possible. So I hope that was helpful. If you're interested at all in wanting to work with one of our coaches, all of our coaches get trained weekly by me and other coaches that I bring in to mentor us. And then they've also had a long history of both either going to school for coaching and science in the kinesiology and exercise science, or they have had a long internship and years of training under lots of other different studio gyms and practices. So if you're interested in working with one of our coaches, and then you also want to work with our doctor who goes over your labs and helps you understand exactly what you need for your goals, then let's DM me back fats here on YouTube or on Instagram. And what we'll do is we'll get you the application to do a discovery call with one of our coaches, and we'll see if our service is a good fit for you. So hope this was helpful. Next week, we'll go over protein, and we'll look forward to jumping in that with you. So have a great day, and thanks for listening.